is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come on, make the space between all the things unseen and his reckoning. And I know I will never be alone. I know. Come on. And I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded, could you have been to me? I'll count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know I can see the light. And I can see the light in the darkness. As the darkness bows to him, I can hear the roar in the heavens.
All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of 3 Men in the Fire. This is going to be an exciting one for us because this is the first time that we've got some guests with us. We have got my pastor, Aaron Woodson Sr., with us today, and Two Toes' good friend and brother, Josh. I didn't catch his last name, so we'll let him. Bishop? Oh,
Fisher.
Fisher. Oh, I thought he said Bishop. I was going to say, we got a bishop in here. Okay, no.
No.
Josh Fisher. So, guys, we're excited about this, and we're going to talk about something tonight that is obviously always deep topics, but this is going to be a two-part episode. And tonight we're going to focus on the natural side of what it really means to be a man. Our title for this episode is The Real Deal: What Truly Defines a Man? And we've got our guest speakers here to ask some questions and get some different viewpoints. And hopefully this will be a blessing and a help to each and every one of you. So feel free to continue to share the lives, share the YouTube link, whatever. You can find us on all the social networks, on podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all that. So without further ado, I'm going to let each of these guests say just a little bit of something, maybe give you some background on themselves, just very short overview, and then we'll jump into asking some questions and getting some real talk.
Absolutely.
Pastor Woodson, you want to start us out?
Yes, my name is Aaron Woodson, and I am the father of 5 children, and they age from age 50 to 41, so I'm kind of out of the woods with children, but I have 8 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, and in all of that, and they're all with the same women. I'm going to add that in there. So I've kind of built, I don't want to use the word dynasty, but I've kind of built a family, and in all of that, I've seen a lot of things that's important as far as manhood or the lack of manhood as it relates to just living life and going forward and trying to be what I would term, in my thinking anyway, a success as a father and grandfather.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for being with us, Pastor Woodson. We appreciate you coming on today. Josh.
Glad to be here.
So I'm Josh Fisher. I've got 3 beautiful children. 2 of them are married, out of the house. Gave me 3 grandchildren. I've got my newest just showed up in January, and then I've got my son who still lives with me. He's about to turn 18 in May. And yeah, lots of life experiences. And just, yeah, I can hopefully talk to this subject pretty well, hopefully.
Well, we're confident in you, so you wouldn't be here. I mean, I will say at least you got this down. I think all 4 of us have this down pretty well. We're men.
Yeah,
we're right? Real men. I can confidently say that we are all real men, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we are. I'm not questioning my manhood.
No, we don't want to do that.
So I'm gonna start out with a question that's very broad. You don't have to go too deep into this, but I just want to get your take and definition on this. Josh, I'm going to start with you. What does being a man truly mean to you?
Okay, so truly being a man is in my thought process is the guy who gets up and whether he loves his job or not, gets up, goes, provides for his family, loves his family. You can't do anything else. You got to love your family because you're not going to be willing to break yourself for them. Man is committed to one woman. I can't say that any other way. Man, in a lot of terms, has gone through some sort of personal hardship that he has had to overcome, and is willing to do anything and everything he can for his friends and family.
Yeah, I like that. And, you know, for me growing up, seeing like my grandfather, you know, which was the only example I had of a real man, you know, I didn't grow up with a good father figure. And the guy who was supposed to be a figure was horrible. I mean, he was abusive and he just wasn't, you know, good example. But my grandfather was. And I mean, he was a hard worker, most of the time had 2 jobs and did just that, man. So yeah, that's deep. I think definitely work and taking care of your family and being that provider is a huge part of being a man. Pastor Woodson,
absolutely.
what does being a man truly mean to you?
A man I ditto to what has been said. A man has to be a person that is willing to work, and work has to be an ethic put into them. And I got that from my dad because they are actually the head of the household in a lot of ways. They also are a person that should be responsible, accountable, and responsible, accountable. Even when you don't make the best of decisions, you have to just fess up and say, "Hey, I did that. It wasn't the best of decisions." And then a man, to me, if a woman is involved in your life, such as a wife, then a man should also understand that a woman's thoughts and a woman's needs, emotional, spiritual, and even their thinking is needed. They're there to if a woman, to me, that's all a part of being a man, a real man. Also, I think I have to throw in when it comes to, because they are the weaker vessel, maybe even physically, I have to throw in that it's safety around the home. And I used the example one time, if somebody knocks on the door at 12:30 at night, and you're both laying in bed, you shouldn't say, "Honey, you better go see who that is." That ought to be the man's job.
That's right. That's right.
Man,
Absolutely.
We don't like roles today, but it's still important.
Oh yeah,
That's
man.
right.
I'm telling you, that's one I've never done. Thank God. And I don't know that I could call somebody a real man if in the middle of the night you hear a bump and you say, "Baby, go up." I'm not sending my wife. I'm gonna tell
If you do contact us, we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
We'll try to have a conversation about that.
we'll try to help you out.
Yeah, we'll work with you.
Man, those are all good points. And you know, Pastor Woodson, you brought up something that leads me to another question. Tom, feel free to shut me up too, because I got a lot on this. So you know, if you got a question, jump in. But you said something, head of household. That usually, I guess, modern day brings in the thought of, well, what makes you the head? And you're the one that makes all the decisions. You're the one that gets all the say so. And you know, there's a lot of kickback on that, right? And that's not really what being the head of a household means. Right. Pastor, you want to elaborate on that? And then Josh, I want to give you a chance to add on to anything that, what is the head of household? What is the whole purpose of that?
The head of the household is a person that when it all rubber meets the road, some need is not met. I've been through the days of couldn't pay my gas bill, and that falls back on the man. I've been in the position where I didn't know where we were going to eat for the next few days. And that falls back on the man. Thank God I'm far from there today. But I mean, that shouldn't be the woman's ideal or job, or to try to figure out how we're going to do this. If if there is some input and it's not going to take you down the wrong road from the woman, thank God it is there. But but you said something that kind of interested me. What makes you the head and that kind of thing? I counseled a couple years ago, and premarital counseling. They was going to get married, and they asked me to perform the wedding, and so I did premarital counseling. I was just talking to them, and the young lady, she had a hard time. She said, "I don't believe I ought to listen to a man," and she said other things after that, and I said, "Oh," she didn't tell me. I said, "Oh, you came from a single household, a single parent household, and your mother raised you." She never thought to ask me, "How did you know that?" I guess she probably thought I knew it from them bringing her there. I had no clue, but from what she told me, and I'm going to throw in right here, we're messed up today in society because one of the many reasons is because women do not want to listen to men because, as she said, well, my mother was by herself, didn't have a man, and we made it all right. So to her, that's the pattern, the blueprint she had. And I thought to myself, this is going to be rough if she doesn't change her thinking in the marriage. I don't know what happened in the marriage, but I know the marriage didn't make it. He could have been in every marriage. Usually, someone's maybe both are at fault. But anyway, so right. With that, I'll just digress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and we get that a lot, right? The women's movement is a good thing. Oh. It's a good thing. To a degree. I mean, women should have been a long time ago viewed in a much better light, treated much better, respected their opinions, their thoughts. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. But sometimes we tend to go too far with things, right? And I'm not saying women just in general, and even men can tend to go too far, right? Our projects, our cars, our automobiles, running with your friends when you should be at home, romancing your wife or whatever, and spending time with her. So we all have that tendency, but we've seen this movement to where it went from women were very submissive to now women are very rebellious, and what you say has no value, and it's almost like a contention in a marriage where we're fighting for authority when we should be working together to just make good, positive decisions for our family.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
Josh, do you have something to add to that?
We're the stronger vessel. So I was just going to say we're the stronger of the two vessels. So we should be there for the woman to lean on, not us lean on them in certain situations. We as men are called to be leaders, and you can't lead if you're leaning on somebody else. That doesn't make you a leader. And as far as the woman goes, they I'm not saying that they're weak, but we are the stronger vessel. And they do need someone to lean on and someone to guide them, just as well. So I don't,
Well, I'm gonna say, let me throw this in. I agree with what you're saying. And when you say strong, though, I think you mean what, physically?
Yeah. Well, I think we were created stronger, both physically, spiritually, and mentally. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I think we were created the strong one out of the two, and for a purpose. We are to provide, we are to protect, and we should be the ones that they have to lean on, not them having to worry about, are we going to lean on them, right, for things. We are providers.
Just to throw out here, this is just something. So, if we're talking Bible, right, when, ye two shall become one, right? God knows what he's doing, right? I will say that, to those that believe and know, God knows what he's doing. If you don't believe in God, just, take this with a grain of salt. But there's a reason why men were meant to be the leaders. We're not as emotional, right? It's just not in our biology to be as emotional. We tend to be a little more level-headed. However, because of that, God, when he made woman, he made a real good helpmeet and a complement to that side of us that we don't grasp, right? And there are times, I will say that, yes, should we be a leader in the sense of making good, strong decisions? For sure. but we also need to be open to that guidance and the wisdom that even a woman brings to give us that emotional side. Does that make sense? So we complement one another. So, and I'll be honest, there's times when my wife is even more strong than me, you know, mentally or spiritually or whatever. There's times where, you know, I'm down. So it's just working together.
Well, that's, you know, that's like you said, that's, you know, where God said, you know, the two flesh, you will become one.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's where that works in, you know, when you're down, she picks you up, and when she's down, you pick her up. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I just don't want anyone to think that's listening to this, that, you know, that none of us, cause I know that we don't have a negative mindset towards women, that women are like less than men, not at all. You know, yeah. And there are times when a man has to lean on her, you know, too. And she's the stronger one at that time. Go ahead, Pastor. I can see you chomping at the bit to say something here.
I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was a Mother's Day, and there's a bad intersection down the street from me at 46 and Emerson. Accidents, when I say bad, accidents happen there all the time. So it was about time for church to let out, and an accident just happened, and I walked up on this little boy and a little girl in the back seat. Well, it was a little girl that was the oldest, and two boys, her brothers, and they were just, their heads were flopping on her. She kept pushing them off. The two little boys was dead. The mother was in the front seat, and she really was in shock and didn't know what was going on. And the little girl was just fine, no blood anywhere. And the mothers was beginning to get out of church. They had their hats on, and they were just, you know, I walked up on it, and I couldn't hardly stand to see it. The mothers jumped out of their cars and began to minister to the situation, and none of them cried because they were so busy. They jumped into mother mode. When the police did come, I said, boy, he's going to get an eyeful. He looked in the car, and he snatched around real quick. He couldn't see it either. It just bothered. We were the only two males on the scene that it really bothered. That, I mean, it bothered all of us, I'm sure. And that, to that weakness and that strength thing, I say to this, there's some areas that I can't quite pinpoint that women are stronger than men as a general rule, and men are stronger than women in most areas. And I think the two come together and they make a perfect strength.
Yes.
The problem you have is when a man says, I'm a man, a woman's a dummy and she knows nothing.
Yes.
Or a woman says, well, men are all stupid and dumb. Now you're going to have a problem because neither one of them is going to be able to tap into that strength from each other because of their mindsets.
100%. Well said. Well said. That's really what I was getting at. And you just, you said it a much better way. So thank you. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, in my marriage, my wife and I mean, we were definitely co-equals. You know, when it came to fixing things around the house, that was me. I mean, solely. I mean, I have the hands to do it, so I did. I worked. She stayed at home raising the kids. But you know, when it came to the emotional stuff, she was definitely the stronger one. But it was almost so much so that when an emergency came up, she was over there panicking, and I'm the one that's trying to think through the processes and get things done. And, you know, the bump in the night, you know, the spiders in the corner, you know, I got to take care of that because she wouldn't. But I mean, it was a perfect union of two people. And where I lacked, because I do lack somewhat in the emotional side, she definitely made up for it. But I had the strength and I had the capability when critical thinking had to come down on because of emergency. I mean, we had an accident happen right in front of us. Guy got T-boned right in front of us. And before she knew what happened, I'm already parking the car going, you guys stay here, call 911. I'm running up there, and she's like, I don't even know what to do. You know, I mean, she totally froze out on me, but I mean, that was our marriage, though. I mean, it was good.
Well, Joe has a question here. I want to get to what we have in the chat, the people that are here, and Joe's not with us, but he's bringing up something here that I think we should would touch on too. He says sometimes the man can be the head of the household, but also not be the breadwinner and stay at home with the children. I mean, speak to that. We see that more now, like in today's day and age, than what we did maybe, 20, 30 years ago, right? I mean, there's just been a demographic change when it comes to the workplace. Sometimes women are paid more than men, and it makes more sense for the man to maybe stay at home. That doesn't make him not the man, right? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, now I'm not saying, okay, I guess, let me break this down, y'all.
Yeah.
It's not that the man isn't willing to work, okay, or that he doesn't want to work. It's just that maybe the situation with their children, daycare, maybe his education, right? I grew up in a home, I was told you'll never amount to anything, you'll never be nothing. So I didn't even go to college because I just was like, I'm going to always be worthless. But I later went to college, but I was at 26 and I already had 2 kids. So it was a whole different thing. But there are some men that find themselves in situations where the woman was maybe raised a different way, right? And it just makes sense for them as a couple. What about that man? Right? He's at home. He might not be the breadwinner, so to speak, but he's getting it done at home.
I can see that. It would be so in the household that I grew up in. Both my parents worked numerous hours, and I mean, it wasn't that we weren't okay. It wasn't like my mom had to work 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. It was because my dad had such a drive. My dad had such a drive to be whatever his vision of life should be. For my household, though, my wife got to a point where she couldn't work anymore. And I had no issues with stepping up and saying, okay, you know what, that's fine. And I mean, I didn't go to college until I was 30. I mean, my son was already born by the time I started going to college. So I understand that. But I did what I had to make sure that my family was going to be taken care of and everything else. And so to me, it's a foreign idea, but it's not so foreign that I couldn't say, okay, yeah, you're taking care of the kids. It seems abnormal to me just because of the life that I've lived.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, it seems abnormal for me too, just because that's not how I was raised. But Joe, okay, so Joe brings up, he gives us an example here. He said, just for instance, women that are in the military, right? And the husbands, they have to stay home, right? Women are deployed. I mean, we're seeing 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't so much the case, but nowadays there's a lot more women in the military.
Well, I think that's a discussion for a whole nother day.
Yeah, I get.
To be 100% honest, I was in the military too, so
well,
so that to me is that's a different subject. But I mean, I get it. I mean, if you have to have a partner at home to take care of the kids, and the wife absolutely can't, or it doesn't make sense, like you said, the amount of money that she makes. But I also know that there is a caregiving that, and I'll say this from my own personal experience, there's caregiving that my wife could give that I couldn't. In every aspect. I mean, my son is, okay, so Tommy knows this about me. My wife passed away in November last year. And my son and I struggled because he's still in school. She was the one who always took care of his school. She had everything to do with the teachers and everything else. And I didn't have to be hands-on. And I struggled to keep up with all that stuff now at this point, because now I'm having to try to fulfill the role of 2 parents. And I don't know that it would be any easier if I wasn't working, just because of who I am and my lack of, my lack of ability to be that person.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't think.
I guess couples run into things where they have to make a decision anyway. You know, maybe, I mean, obviously, if you have the opportunity to work, you may not make as much money as your wife, but, you know, but still, if you can work, definitely go work and add monetarily to the family.
So what we're
Especially
doing-
nowadays.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tommy.
No. You're fine.
So-
I was just saying, especially nowadays.
So things are really generational at this point, is what I'm hearing from us, because there was a time when typically the male did go out and they were the breadwinner, and as we call it, and the women stayed home with the children. And I understand that day's past. Even in my day, I was a product of as a child, the 60s and 70s, so I go way back. My mother, I'm the youngest of six. My mother did not work. She stayed home with the children. And when I got a certain age, I can remember her stepping out and getting her a real job. But my daddy did all the work. I mean, he was the worker, and most of the time had two jobs. I don't think it's a lack of malehood or manhood for the man to be at home today. It's kind of what you have to. It's kind of where you at and what your particular household has to do. For me, and the question that logs in my mind that I've dealt with off and on, I don't know the answer because I only know what I think about it. But would you have a problem? Some men would have a problem with the woman being the breadwinner, or even making more if they both were making much more than the man. I have no problem with that. I made all the money for so many years. I kind of patterned me and my wife patterned. We're coming up on 50 years of marriage. We patterned, really not even knowing what my mother and father did by me being the breadwinner. She stayed at home, but there came a time when she got out, and now I'm retired, and she makes all the money basically, and I just get a retirement check, and I don't have any problem with it. But some men do. Some men have a problem with that. Ego, male ego.
That's exactly what it is. Ego. Ego.
So one of the things we're getting here.
Situations going to arise in a family. You know, you're gonna come up on situations. You know, as years go by, whether you're in a marriage or whatever the situation is in your family, you're going to come up on situations where somebody's going to step out and somebody's going to stick it out at home, regardless whether it's the male or the female, the man or the woman. It doesn't matter. You know, and I agree with you, Pastor. I have no problem when it comes to the woman making more money or when it comes down to something like that. That's to me, it's not an issue of that. To me personally, I couldn't stay at home because of my own drive. You know, that doesn't make somebody else less of a man because they can. Okay, I'm saying for my personal self, my own drive, and Rick, you know me, you know, I can't stay at home. You know, I've got to be. I don't care.
He's got to do something. He's like Ricky Bobby. What do I do with my hands?
Yeah. I mean, I can make $20-$30 less than you, and it wouldn't bother me a bit. But just me personally, I feel like I still need to be out there doing stuff. I do get it. I do understand. You know, there can be cases in a family where a child is of special needs, and they have to have one of the two parents, regardless which one it is, there at all times. You know, they know them. You can't just pass a child like that off to just anybody. You have to. There's special care that they need, and the two parents know. So regardless of which one it is, and if the mother has the job making the most money, then the father should do those things and step in. That's also stepping up and being a man. You're stepping up and you're taking care of your business. You know, your children need you. So if you're there for your children and doing those things in your home, whether the woman's making more money or doing whatever, and that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. It doesn't make you no less of a man.
And that is it. And that's really what I was getting at. And Aisha just asked, you know, and the vibe she was getting, and I was going to clarify that, you know, she was saying that the vibe that she was getting was that if you're not working or doing something that makes you less of a man, you know, that's not the case. That's not the case. And Tommy, I think you put it really well and clear. You know, as a man, it is our job. If you have a family, a spouse, children, whatever, anybody that you're taking care of, it is your job to do whatever has to be done to make sure that everyone's taken care of. If that means you have to stay at home because you can't afford childcare, Joe brought up cost of living has changed. Just for a newborn, it's $1,500 a week. I don't make $1,500 a week. It just makes sense to maybe stay at home until that child grows and her income is more. That doesn't make you less of a man. It's if you're sitting at home playing video games and you just want to hang out with your friends or playing online poker while your wife goes to work and then she comes home and she has to make dinner for you and you just sat down all day doing nothing. And then she has to cut your grass and clean your gutters because in that case, I'll say, yeah, you ain't a real man. But if you were doing, I've never met one like. Well, I don't know. My wife gets down. My wife gets down. She can do just about anything. She's like Wonder Woman, man.
Absolutely.
But in those cases, if you're not trying to sow anything into your family, then 100% that makes you, not a man if you're not sewing in. But if you're trying, whatever it takes, I mean, making sure that you and your wife work together for a plan to get it to, together, like Pastor Woodson was saying, you completing each other and leaning on each other's strengths. That's what it's about. 100%. And that to me is a real man. Respecting your wife's decisions, communicating with her, whether if you don't agree, communicate that, and working together to formulate a plan to get to that common end goal that I want to raise our kids successfully. We want them to be successful in life. If they have kids, we want them to know what it's like to have mom, dad, or to be good parents. And, like I always told my kids, I want you to be a help to society and not a menace.
Yeah. Reason one to another. And sometimes that reasoning means that we as men have to step up and do the household things.
Yeah.
That's just part of it. That's just part of society now today. It's not like today is not like it was back then, back in the 50s, 60s, and before I'm sorry, Pastor.
Oh, you're calling him out. He's taking jabs at you, Pastor.
Life today is not like it was back in the old days.
Way back when.
Way back when. But so we as men, I think personally myself, I think it makes you more of a man to be able to step up and do those things in your household and take control of those things in your household and lead in that way and let the woman, if she's making the more money, go out and work and you do those things at home. I think that makes you more of a man than it does to try to outdo her in the workforce and make her stay at home. That's my opinion.
I'm still old school enough, though. I'm going to throw this out, and if anybody doesn't agree, that's fine. This is just my own. I'm still old school enough, though, that I'm not going to have my wife out changing the oil on my car, or fixing brakes, cleaning gutters, cutting the grass. I'm just not going to do that. I'm sorry. Whether she works a job and I work a job, or it doesn't matter. There's just some things where and now that's just me. Like I said, to each relationship their own. But for me, I don't want my wife doing that. If she's worked a job, my body biologically is made to handle more than hers. If she's worked a job, come home, do some lightweight stuff. I don't want you out there lifting things that are heavy and getting yourself in a bind, getting your hands all calloused up and dirty. I'd rather tear my body down and take care of her.
Respect her. Respect what she does.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
A real man will cherish his wife or his spouse or, a woman.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing in another way. If that's the case and she's out making the money and I'm at home, when she comes home, she should want for nothing.
100%.
That's right. That's right.
It ought to be done.
100%.
I'm not very domestic.
Yeah. Hey.
So I got to go out and work.
when the roles reverse, the man expects those things.
Yeah. My wife actually just jumped in the chat. My wife just jumped in the chat. She said, he won't even let me carry a ladder. I won't. I told her, I said, you ain't carrying, if you throw your back out or something, heck no. This actually just happened last week. I was cleaning the gutters out, spring cleaning, getting everything all ready to go. Any leftover leaves that were up there. And she went to grab that ladder. I said, put that down. I got on to her. I said, I'm not being it disrespectfully, but I don't want you to get hurt, and I think it's because I love my wife and I cherish her and I value her, and anything that you value and you take care of,
you want to take care of.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm not going to take my brand new car through, ghetto car wash where the concrete truck just went through and there's concrete all in the bristles and scratch my paint. No, thank you. I'll hand wash it. If we'll do that for our car, we should definitely be more so with our spouse. But
Hold
Tammy,
on, you behind the pulpit right now, bro.
right? Yeah, y'all got me fired up.
Say that again. No,
but
I got, babe. Before you get into that, I have one question that I want to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think? Josh, we'll start with you. What do you think are the biggest challenges that face a man today? What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that come against a man that may keep him from believing that he is a man in today's society?
Gosh, I would say quite literally society itself. We are, how should I put this? We're told we're supposed to act one way and then get beat down for acting that exact way that they tell us that we're supposed to act. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. It's the I think the big thing now is the toxic masculinity. Like, if you're a masculine guy, then you're just the most horrible and disgusting thing in the world. But yet, you want masculine guys. You want guys that are strong. You want guys, and I don't mean just even physically. I mean mentally and everything else. I think that really men get beat down for being truly just a man, wanting to have a job. I don't know how many times I've heard it, but I mean, wanting to, as Rick said, he told his wife to put his ladder down. There are people out there, and I've heard it myself, that are like, well, why would you dare tell a woman to do that? Why would you dare step in? I mean, holding the door open for a woman anymore. It's frowned upon in society today. So the things that actually made us gentlemen, the things that actually made us good even 10 years ago, are now frowned upon, and it's hard for a man to act like a man anymore because of that. It's such cross signals.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Pastor Whitson, you got anything to add?
Yes, one of the biggest challenges, I think, that challenges I'm starting with a little boy, a boy being a real man, is poor mentorship as they grow up. A boy and a girl. A lot of stuff that I'm going to say this week and next week really apply to girls too, as far as being real women. A boy or a girl, and especially we're talking about boys here, they need some male role model. They either need a grandfather, an uncle. If their father's not there, they need a good role model. You learn so much that you are not told and instructed to do, but you saw by example. You learned it by example. Matter of fact, you can be told things, and that really doesn't teach you if the person is, I think we alluded to that, if the person is telling you those things doesn't do it themselves. You really learn by what they do. The other big thing is I'm not here to beat up on anybody, any group, but all of the homosexuality that's all around us today. If being a man does certain things, acts a certain way, women act a certain way, even in the way we walk down the street. A big child, holding the door open. I heard him say holding the door open. That's not really something that is I hold the door open for people all the time, strangers, and it's a strange world now. And I'll hold the door open for anybody of any color, and I'll hold it open for any sex. I wonder sometimes when I'm holding the door open, and I'm going back to just looking at someone says that's probably a lesbian. I wonder if when I'm holding the door open for a lesbian, do they think I'm trying to deduce them to being a woman? Because I don't quite understand that whole world. So I wonder if that's a sign of disrespect to them when I would have held the door open for anyone, including a man. That's me. And so holding the door open now has become so confusing, and that seems like it's a given. So it should be a given of something so simple. You shouldn't have to think about this.
100%.
Absolutely.
But that's a challenge to me. A challenge is, has anyone seen the movie The Forge?
Oh, yes, I have. Great movie. Great movie. By the way, Chad, anybody that's hearing this or listening to this, go watch The Forge. Forge.
Someone told me about it, and the man that told me about it, he said, I cried. Yeah. And I watched the movie, and I was hesitant. I don't have time to really watch movies. The movie came on a cruise, and I couldn't get out of my room, so I didn't know it was going to be on TV, and I watched it. I think it would be a good idea for anyone to watch The Forge, especially a man.
100%.
That's what life is all about to me, mentoring. Mentorship, that's what it's about. The name sounds very misleading. It sounds misleading.
It does.
That's the reason I didn't watch it. It didn't sound interesting.
But you know what's funny, though, about that, and I'm glad you brought that movie up, it's really where the premise of what we're doing with this podcast. The Forge, and they talk about it in the movie, is forged in fire, right? And it takes fires, it takes some struggles, and the fire that they're referring to is the fires of life and the struggle of being a man. And, and that's what we have to go through. We have to go through some heat, some hard times, some struggles. And
sure,
if we come out on the other end, we don't let it consume us. We come out on the other end, we're stronger. You become a solid piece of metal that next time when it gets hot, you're not gonna melt down so easy because you've been here before. That's deep.
Absolutely. That's deep.
I'm telling you, I can go way into the spiritual side on that. That's super deep, but I'm so glad you brought that movie up, Pastor Woods, because if anybody, any man listening to this, and even a woman, I mean, it'd be a blessing to you to listen or watch that movie, but definitely The Forge is a great one.
Sounds like we already got some good stuff started out next week.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to say,
Right?
if I were to answer your question, Tom, it's harder for me to answer it in a natural sense than it would be a spiritual sense. So we'll save that for next week. But when it comes to challenges of being a man, there's so many spiritual challenges, and I think that's where we get to the root of the problem. But the natural side of everything that we see is definitely a symptom. Some of the things that Josh was talking about, Pastor Woods was talking about. Go ahead, Pastor.
So even in the question that he asked, what is thought to be a man today was not what we thought to be a man. Holding the doors is a small thing, one of them, 30 or 40, 50 years ago. Now to be a man just means I make babies everywhere, and I don't take care of business at all. I don't really work, and what's unfortunate is we have girls who are no longer, they're not women either, even though they're grown. I mean, women as the way we're defining it, because that's acceptable to them. That would not be acceptable to a woman. I don't care if you have, I don't care if you have children by her, and you're dealing with two other women at the same time with me, as long as you deal with me. If that's acceptable, then they need to check out their womanhood as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Woman is not, it's changed.
That actually leads me into one of the things that I was going to talk about or wanted to question you guys about is, the generational change of manhood.
Ooh.
Every generation has seen it, right? Because I've seen my grandfather, my father. I see the men around me, the man that I am today, and then I see younger generation of let's talk about that, and some of those changes. Josh, you brought up holding the door. I do something that is very, very rare for men today. I still get out of the vehicle, walk around, and open the door for my wife.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, to anybody out there listening to this that says, oh, okay, he's just one of those. I wasn't raised that way. I didn't have a good, I got that in talks with older men. And then after getting saved, realizing that a woman is not just a piece of meat. She's not just this something to be thrown around or to be bossed around. You need to cherish her and love her. And I have, and my wife just said, I wasn't always like that. And I was not always like that. It came with growing. And now I do that, not because it belittles her or because she can't open the door for herself. It's when I'm out in public, I want people to see that this is my wife. I cherish and value her. And I will tell you, it'll blow your mind how many young ladies see me do that. And they'll walk by my wife and say, boy, you got a good one. Whether we talk about it in today's society or not, women have a natural desire to have a real man that will cherish and love them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've seen this generation change to where now it's like, you'll have some people, you hold the door open for them or whatever, and they look at you and go, I don't need you to hold the door for me. I can do this by myself. And we lack that respecting. So, Josh, we're going to start with you on this one because, Pastor, you got an extra generation or two over us here. So you can definitely go into some more. Sorry, I took a stab at him too. You can beat me up later. I love it though. I love that we have someone like Pastor, because I will tell you, one of the greatest thing a man can do is learn from an older generation.
Yep.
One of the greatest things anybody could
absolutely.
do is learn from somebody that came from before them and glean
Your elders.
from their wisdom, glean from their experience. They may not even be the smartest person you've ever met, but they've lived through more than you have. They can tell you some stories. But Josh, let's talk about the generational change real quick. And then I've got to get to another question that came from Tammy a long time ago that I want to talk about, but generational change. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? What have you seen?
Oh gosh. You talked about just a minute ago that there were gosh, how to put that, men who just saw women as
Piece of meat. Yeah.
That was definitely my father's generation. And I don't like saying that out loud, but gosh, it was. I mean, him, my grandfather, my uncle, my uncles on the other side. That's exactly how they viewed it. It was like something was lost from their parents to them. That no, this isn't what it is. And what I see inside my own generation is a lot of guys that just never matured. They still kind of have a playboy attitude, even though even some that are married, they still have a playboy attitude of. And to me, the best thing I ever did and was get married and mature. I mean, that was the best thing I ever did in my life was to grow up. And I think that generationally, I tried to teach my son, the proper ways to treat a lady, and that, that's not just the only thing that a woman's good for. And I tried to teach him, the ways that I saw out of the older generations where, relationships may move quick, but they're wholesome. And I don't think that that's taught a lot nowadays. I don't think that wholesomeness, kind of like what you see with, what was that, 18 Kids and Counting, or whatever that show was, where there was courtships. And, you didn't really there wasn't a lot of physical touching. It was just a courtship. You were trying to get to know the person. And I don't think that we see that a lot anymore these days.
No.
No, not at all. Pastor.
Well, he was talking about the generation over him. I think in every generation, make no mistake about it, there are males, that's what we're talking about here, that never did grow into man, what we're calling a man.
Mm-hmm.
People think chronologically, I'm a man, I'm 3 times 7, whatever. I'm 40 years old, I've done this, but the immaturity, you can leave here, you can be 88 years old and never have matured into a real man. And so that can happen any generation. I know of people in my generation and even before my generation, some of the secrets that have came out now that said that guy was really no good. I had a grandfather, I never met him. He died in the 30s. And they said he was quite a ladies' man. Now, he was still married to my grandmother, but the women around town knew him. There's always those guys. But I think, as has been said, and very aptly so, if you've got to have all these women to complete you, there's really something lacking in you. But so for me, generationally, I think it kind of covers all generations. The problem I'm having today is it has greatly changed because there used to be some norms for years. We kind of understood this is what a man does, this is the way a man responds to life, this is the way a man treats a woman, and all that means nothing anymore. It's almost the complete opposite now. And a real man, they get down like this, and I'm thinking, that's the more women, the more male you are, which is the complete opposite of what I was taught and what I feel as a man. And then you got to think, is some of this stuff destructive, not to just your generation, but the children that we're having a daycare has made me see a lot of poor examples of men and women. And I don't know where we're going because these children are going to be adults someday, and if they keep living, hopefully. And I don't know, they don't have really any examples. So me as a person working there, even I try to interact with the children, and I'll call a little girl all the time, hey little lady. I will say lady because I want them to have a concept of what a lady is. Hey little man, but I really will do it with the girls. And you want to go over there? Okay, little lady. I'll use that term because what I'm seeing is anything but a lady being raised. So, yeah. And I'm just going to throw this in. Y'all didn't ask for this as extra, as my friend says. In marriage, I'm to the point now where I really don't want to marry anyone anymore. As a pastor, I really don't want to marry anyone because I don't see a lot of marriage material, male or female. That guy is really not a man that anybody should marry, and that woman's not a woman that anybody should marry, but they want to marry each other. That's just, I can't really freeze up like that completely, but I want to.
Right. Yeah. They come to you saying we want to be married, but all you see is a future of divorce.
Yes.
Exactly. It's just a title to them nowadays. That's all it is. It's just something that they can throw around and say, "Oh, that's my wife," or "That's my husband." But when they're in their home, or wherever, they feud with each other, because they don't respect each other. You see it, and you see it. And I was going to tell you, Pastor, congratulations on 50 years. Because you don't see that. You do not see that nowadays. You see that with the earlier generations. You don't see that nowadays. You see somebody get married, and in the back of your mind, you're telling yourself, "See you in 5 years," hey, or less. You know what I mean? So
very quickly, the pattern is about 35 years old. It used to be you're on your second wife. 50 years old, you're on your third wife. That was the generation after me. Now this generation, they don't even get married. They just have babies with this one, live with them. Then they leave that one. They'll give her another lady. They'll have a couple of babies. marriage is not even, and I say to that, someone said to me that's coming on 62 years of marriage, I wish more people were married. I said, I don't.
Right.
Because I see they're not going to stay together.
Right.
You know, why do that?
Yeah.
One house commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's and talking about a real man, a real man in my book is somebody who can make that commitment and stick with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I know you guys have probably all heard this, and this is kind of an older saying for a lot of people, but my grandpa used to tell me that a man is worth no more than his word. If you said something, you did it.
Yeah.
Your word was as good as gold. I mean, and you have so many people nowadays that will just say whatever to you, and their word doesn't mean nothing. They could tell me they're standing in front of me, and I still wouldn't believe them, even though I'm looking at them. Their words that worthless.
Yeah.
It is. It's tough today.
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot to it. I mean, and I knew that this was a deep topic. Tammy asked earlier, though, and I know that we kind of got into a lot of relationship stuff and family stuff, but what about those men that don't have a family, don't have a wife? I mean, we've got a lot of young men maybe that would even, listen to this. There's some young men getting out there in the world, starting their life. What are some things that we could, I guess, drop and say to them? Did anybody listen to this about being a real man? What would your advice be, should I say, to a younger generation or to somebody who doesn't have a family that's looking to move further in their life? Anybody can take a stab at this one.
Yeah, I'll start. I say, I would say that, if that's something that you're truly seeking, then you need to get yourself right first. Get right with yourself, and make sure you're doing everything that you do for the right reasons, for the right purpose, and make sure that when if you get into something like that, if you get into a relationship with a woman, that you care about that woman, you love that woman, and you show them, and you treat them with respect. And the more you do those things, the more it's going to come back to you from her side, and the bond with you two will grow. And as long as you stay focused on what you need to be doing and where you need to be in that relationship, and who you're supposed to be in that relationship, I think you could go a long ways. And that's where we've lost. I think that's where we as men today have lost a lot of that, and why things and why relationships and marriages don't work today is because there's a lack, and I mean that, I'm saying it and it sounds small, but I mean it in a big way. There's a lack of respect for women when it comes from men today, as far as a relationship and being married, being in a marriage, and having a bond with a woman that is supposed to be, forever. And because, like you alluded to a while ago, Rick, like your grandpa said, your word is your bond. And when you give those vows in front of God and everybody, you have gave your word. You have made a bond with her that you're supposed to hold on to, and you're supposed to keep that. And when you say forever, and until death do us part, that's what that's supposed to mean. Those words wasn't put there for funny reason, for you just to hear, for you just to look at. Those words were put there for a reason. Those words were to make a bond that stayed together until that happened. So I think today we've lost, as men, we have just lost respect for women. And so if you're kid, that's one of the biggest things that you need to do as you're coming up and coming into those things is to make sure that you're doing things for the right purpose and the right reason, and that you have respect for your significant other as you go into those things, and you respect each other. You make sure that those things are growing before you just jump into something.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Pastor.
There was a time that even outside of the church world, the Bible, faith in God, you could see the man across the street that didn't even go to church, and he was a good example of a natural male. There was a time you had uncles I mean, that was an example if you didn't have a dad or you lost your dad at a young age. Now we don't, I'm going to say it again, we really don't have many males, boys who are growing into manhood, a young man, 18, 19, 20 years old. It's long before that, first of all. They don't have an example. So they have no roadmap as to what a man is or should be. And when society speaks to them what it is, then we get the same old messed up person that we've already got. We just got we got a clone of that. And it just keeps replicating itself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we've seen a lot of that. You know, young men, or young boys having horrible male examples or role models and then becoming that or something worse.
Yeah.
Josh, you have anything on that, Mud?
Yeah, I would say personally, learn integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Learn integrity, because when you can sit there and look yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, I know I did all the right stuff without somebody having to watch over me.
Yeah.
Then that's important.
Yeah. I man, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I had a list of things that I was going to talk about over here, and integrity was one of them. And to those of you that are listening, and I'm going to give you just a layman's term definition of integrity. It's doing right when no one else is there to witness. Nobody's watching you, and you still make the decision to do right. It could be something as little as I've had times where my kids are with me, and the cashier accidentally gave me too much money, and I walked out to my car, and I realized it. I could have taken that and just left, but then I had to think, they're going to count her drawer at the end of the day. This lady could lose her job over $10. It's not that $10 ain't going to make or break me. I'd rather do the right thing and go in there and just give her that $10 back and say, hey, and I did that. I took it back in. She goes, oh, thank you. You tell she was concerned. She could have lost her job. It's doing the right thing, and my kids fortunately got to witness that. But even if they weren't there, I'd have still done it. Because that's integrity, doing the right thing when nobody else is around to even see it.
Yes. I do with that. I do that all the time too. I'm like, when I go in to pay for something, I make sure that I'm watching. I'm like you, Rick. I watch the cashier and make sure that she rings everything up. If I see her skip something or something's not, I'm like, hold on a minute. I don't think and I'll tell them, and it doesn't have nothing to do with anybody looking at me or I'm afraid of being caught of doing something. It's because it's within me to do the right thing. It's built in me to do those right things for myself and for if anybody is looking out of the corner of their eye, at the same time, they can see those things and be like, yeah, why do you do that? Well, it might rub off onto somebody at the same time. Not that you're doing it because somebody's watching, but if somebody sees you do the right thing, it might something might click in them to, well, maybe I should do that too. I mean,
Pastor Woodson, go ahead.
I've done a lot of things like that, but the one that stands out to me is older lady was pushing her cart outside of Kohl's, and I noticed she got her little stuff and put it in the car, and she left her purse in there. Well, I ran and told her, hey, your purse. She said, oh, thank you. She really thanked me, because I could have taken it. And my pastor was a theologian, and you just he'd ask you a question, and you never really had the answer. So he asked the question one time, what is integrity? And he liked the answer, and I thought, boy, I'm going to stay with this one. Integrity, in my definition, is hidden honesty.
Yeah.
It's hidden honesty.
Yeah.
You so nailed it, Rick. I mean, it's when you're just honest, you're true, when there's nobody around looking. That's just you on the inside. It's a heart condition.
Yes.
I'm back to the heart. It's what's on the inside. You either have it or you don't.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Hidden honesty. That's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Nobody's around to witness it, and you still choose to do right. I love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, right, we know that.
And that makes you more of a man too.
Yeah, and Aisha says here too that just because a man doesn't have a great role model doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be a great man. And
that's right.
And that's something I was going to bring up
absolutely.
too. You know, one of the things that I tell young men is if you've got a horrible example, you know, of a male man in your life, then, you know, get with somebody who is, you know. Fortunately for me, I'm just to share this a little bit. You know, Pastor Woodson I've known him all of my adult life. He's been my male role model. I have tried to mimic a lot of stuff, you know, like earlier when I was talking about opening the door for my wife and stuff. And I learned how to love a wife by watching the way that he loves his wife. And I've been at Gethsemane Apostolic Church now for 23 years, or no, 22 years in April. So next month, 22 years. And he, you know, he's been there, and I didn't have a great role model growing up. I mean, if I would have followed the template that was laid out before me, it would have been beating a woman, talking down to her, smacking her, hitting her around, telling her she's worthless, you know, not buying her anything, going out and buying booze all the time and getting drunk every day, every chance I could. I mean, that's what I would have been, you know, if you took the example that was put before me. But instead, I decided I don't want to be that, you know, and you can break that, but you have to.
You broke it.
Yeah. As a man, though, a real man is one that can recognize this isn't right. Don't use it as a crutch or some kind of handicap or excuse as to why you act and you do the things that you do. A real man is one that says, I know this isn't right, and I'm going to break this. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to be better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Joe says that's not always an option to find someone. Sometimes the man has to step up and do his best with what he, and that's true. You may not, but I mean, you know, if you look around enough, you can find some things. I mean, and now we don't just preach at everybody and yada yada and all that stuff. You know, those of you that have listened to us for a while now, you know that we're Christian believers, but I can say if you want to find some examples of a real good man, look at Jesus.
That's right.
Go find you a Bible. You might not find a real world example. Go find you a Bible and look at Jesus. And I'm not even telling you that you have to say, oh, Jesus is Lord, this, and that. I mean, I hope you come to that conclusion, but just go look at the example that he laid out and the way that he done things. I mean, there's examples out there, you know. It's a real man is one that's just not going to roll over easy. You know, in my book, he's going to be the one that looks for a solution and fights to get to that destination.
Persevere.
Sure.
Yeah, 100%. Real quick, because we're a little bit over our time. I hope you guys are good with the time.
Oh yeah.
I told you time goes by fast.
That's right.
We get into these discussions and time just flies because there's so much. I know we talked a lot about relationships tonight. And for men, that's a big thing, you know, and I think that's why naturally we went to that. We don't have any sort of script. And for those of you listening, that's what we were talking to Pastor Woodson and Josh about was, you know, they were like, well, you know, what do? We don't have a script or anything. We don't use a script. We just go off of what comes to mind and what we talk about. And obviously being in a relationship is a big topic for men, you know, and you know, we've talked a lot about that, how to, you know, treat a wife, which is going to be a topic that we do discuss and go in further detail in another episode. But also taking care of your family, taking care of those around you, being a positive role model and example for people. You know, a lot of those define being a real man. And some of the things that I jotted down, and the first one I put on there, ironically enough, was integrity. Josh, so good stuff there. But integrity, responsibility, owning up to your actions, your commitments, you know, that's a big thing. Discipline, staying committed to your goals, your values, and your personal growth. That's a big thing. Emotional strength, leadership. And we've already talked about leadership in a previous episode. So if you want to dive into that, if you haven't listened to it, go check out that episode about being a real leader. Humility. That's a big one. You know, we got this whole alpha male. I got to show them I'm the man. You know, there's nothing more manly than being meek, you know, in my, in my thinking. In meekness is having the power to do something, but choosing not to, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I could see somebody, it's like, you know what? I could beat that little punk down if I wanted to, but why? Is it going to help anybody? If anything, it's just, you know what I mean? It's just, but humility, you know, knowing your strengths, but staying teachable and open to grow. Respect, you know, treating others, women, men, children, elders. Courage, generosity, and self-awareness. You know, those things are some good characteristics and qualities that I think, you know, comes with being a real man.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna close this out here. Do you got anything else that's on your mind? You guys want to talk about the natural side of being a real man? Anything? You got anything you want to close out with? No.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. We're good. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it. I want us to thank Pastor Woodson and Josh for joining us, man. It's been such a pleasure having both of you. And we look forward next week. We're going to have you guys back with us and we're going to talk about the spiritual side. And I really hope that everyone joins in because there's going to be some real meat in this. We'll bring you some Bible. We'll bring you some biology as it comes to in the form of being a man biologically and some of the natural things, you know, on the inside that we don't see, you know, externally. So I'm really looking forward to that one. So much love to you guys. Thank you so much from 3 Men in the Fire. We hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. We hope to see you again next week. We're going to go live Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are talking about changing some of the times with our releases because we're getting into summer months. So we may be making some small changes. Keep an eye on our website and we'll also bring those changes to you here. So love everybody. Hope you guys all have a great night. Hope someone was blessed. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions or comments and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you.
Have a good one,
Bye-bye.
y'all.